All right, Chris. I'm gonna do this in like a slower motion video. Um, I think I noticed a couple things when I'm watching it in slow motion. So I have my a video I did talking about stroke length on the right side, and then I have the video that you took on the left here. Um, so let me talk about more specifically because I know in the chat I mentioned like finding a little bit more relaxation through your recovery, and I think the area that I'm mostly talking about is like how your arms look a little bit more like they're holding tension through the recovery. Um, so let me highlight kind of the difference, and I took the liberty of going back to like some of your paddling videos that like your most recent one that you posted on Instagram, where you're paddling side view. Um, so if you take a look at that, I think you'll see some of the things that I'm talking about here too. So when you get to the back end of your stroke, um, so once you pass your hip, um, like the so in my opinion, usually like once you get to your hip, you're about done with your stroke. If there will be a little bit of follow through, just because there is some velocity left over from your pull. But usually, I mean, I think if you look at some of your videos, your own videos, paddling on the water, um, a lot of times you're actually out by your hip or even slightly before. But you can see that you get to your hip and you actually extend um, a bit further back, and your arms are still pretty tense. So you can see on this right side here, once I hit my hip area, um, if you look carefully at like my hands and my arms, you can see I kind of go into like this particular moment here. If you look closely at my wrist here, I'm just kind of letting it flow through, right? You can see my not really pressuring down on it anymore, right? As I hit that hip. So follow through and relax. And like by the time I get to this point, you can see my arm is already slightly bent here. You're holding it like pretty straight at the back end there. Um, I mean, so when you're paddling too, you'll notice that your lower arm bends slightly as you go into your follow through and exit, because you're basically you should have power down, and you're just kind of redirecting that velocity and motion back around to the front. Um, you'll notice also like as I'm carrying through to the front, I'm lifting the paddle a little bit higher, um, letting my body reset a little bit more. Um, whereas you're kind of going straight back, and you'll see it from this front view. So when you finish your stroke, obviously usually when you paddle, you're gonna have to clear the water, right? So a lot of people, when they get on the erg, some people say that, oh, it's no problem, just like go straight back because it's the fastest way back. But in my opinion, like when you keep that lower arm going through the water, quote unquote, going through the water, or more hunched over on the side like that, I think a lot of times like your body is just a little bit more, um, I don't want to say kinked over, but just like leaned over slightly to the side. Your shoulder posture, instead of going through like a neutral zone, like a lot of times because you're clearing the water on a boat, like your shoulders relax a little bit more. But when you go through a little bit more rigid through this way, you're holding a little bit more tension. Okay, and then I think the final thing that I would note, and this is, again, I think this is something that you definitely don't do on the water. So I would I mean, I used to paddle on the pERG a little bit more like this, where I would say that here you're overextending a little bit. So, um, and then the other thing is, like on your setup here, and when you get to your extension up front, your arm is almost pointed up, like very slightly pointed up instead of like, well, I guess mine is pointed down. Hmm. Okay, sorry, I'm like pausing a second, but I think one of the areas where there's like potential to get a little bit more injury is if you set up a little bit high. Because when you start at this position and then you go down pretty hard, the rope slack is like there's a decent amount of rope slack, especially if you start with the rope pointing upwards. So let me show you on this video here. So you'll see like through my recovery, I'm typically always keeping the rope slightly downwards. Um, I I need to go back and reference some of my paddling videos too, but sorry, long awkward pause. Um, but take a look at your like even your most recent Instagram video. I think a lot of your strain might also come from like a little bit too much in your lean, like to the point where you're leaning a little bit too down here. Yeah, so I think that's probably I mean I don't know, I might try to make another video where I bring in your paddling video, but I would say like this angle that you're at right now, where you get into your catch, this particular body angle in terms of how much you're leaning, this is like way more than when you're paddling. Um, I think looking at your video, you're probably doing a little bit closer to what I'm at. But I would say like oftentimes I'm maybe leaning a little bit more, but let me show you this angle. So this angle here, okay, so you can kind of see the difference between those two. And then, yeah, okay, I'm just gonna kind of leave it at that. I think sit up a little bit more. I mean, I think you get to your setup in your stroke here, but usually I try to have the end of my stroke coincide with when I'm sitting all the way up, especially if I'm doing a longer test, like a 2-minute test. I would be doing long strokes, which you're doing too, but like you get to the back, I would say this is the back end of your stroke here, but like you can see that your body's still kind of leaned forward here. All right. Just gonna, I think I'm just gonna end the video here. Maybe I'll try to hunt down a video, a paddling video, next side by side with this. All right.